uh, welcome to Dynamics User Group Meetup. And today we are going to look at how to tailor Business Central for manufacturing. And before we start, definitely this is Dynamics User Group. If it is your first time to join the meetup, then remember this is a community that encourages connection. It encourages education or skilling up. Founded in 1995, so it was founded, I'm sure maybe some of you are not born, and it's been long running independent Microsoft Dynamics community. So it began as an online discussion forum and since expanded in to provide video content, training programs, interactive virtual in-person events, regional meetups, sponsorship opportunities, and much more. So it's good to go to dynamicsusergroup.com and register. It's a free community of users, implementers like you, resellers, that is your partners. And the mission is to support the Microsoft Dynamics 365, Dynamics GP, and the Power Platform community of users and professionals by empowering community members with the tools and information that is required for us to excel. As of now, it has got over 47,000 community members. And definitely be courteous, contribute to the meeting, let everyone participate. And the meetup is a place where you connect with the people who speak the same language as you, and it's open to everyone. Feel free to invite everyone, your friends, to be able to join such a community. So there are several programs for Dynamics, and to become a member is free for you to access a broad spectrum of programs from Business Central, customer engagement, finance and supply chain, Dynamics GP, which is getting phased out, Power Platform. And definitely there is a QR code for you to join there. If you are a bit lazy to type dynamicsusergroup.com, you can use the QR code. So we have forums, webinars, a meetup like this one, which is an online one, a conference, team up conferences, YouTube channel, mentorship. Even after this, the meetup will be on YouTube. Then for those who will be on holiday this December in Miami, Florida, the Convergence AI plus ERP is back. The last time this event was held was in 2015, and this time it will be sponsored by Microsoft, but hosted by Dynamics User Group. You can scan the QR code or go to convergence365.com to be able to access and see that particular event and be able to register. All right. And of course, like similar, we had a DynamicsCon East Africa. I'm sure some people didn't join. But of course, if you didn't join East Africa, maybe next year you can consider joining Las Vegas and go. And there's an early bird pricing of only $999. And definitely we have upcoming regionals, and we do have upcoming regionals in 2026. So 2026 is like 3 months to go to 2026. So we definitely have upcoming regionals in Dynamics User Group. So at this point, I will invite our speaker of the day, who is CPA Richard Obiero. And definitely, there's a board that told me that I can go confirm if he is registered as a CPA. I didn't know that you can do that confirmation. So I really experienced in Dynamics or in Business Central, started from Nav specifically in our ecosystem here in Kenya. He has done several implementations, and a module that maybe some people have not even touched it, or they assume or they have heard maybe it's not working the way it's supposed to in this market. Then Richard will cover manufacturing in Business Central. So how to tailor manufacturing for Business Central? I think you focus maybe on East Africa or Africa. I don't know how you'll approach it. And definitely, as part of it, you will handle when to customize Business Central and when to use the base application as is so that you don't over customize, yet you can leverage the base application as is. So over to you, Sir Richard.
Thank you, Msangi, for that. I think my screen should be visible.
Yep. It is, but maybe you need to go to. Okay, now good.
Yes. So this is what I'm going to spend time on. I'm a certified Microsoft partner as well, and also certified in terms of as a practitioner as well with the same guys, Microsoft. So we'll be looking at, I want to look at manufacturing, and within manufacturing, we look at two components. We want to look at how to implement Business Central for manufacturing, and also look at how to minimize customization actually when implementing manufacturing as well. So I want to cover both with this instead of having too many separate slides. And hopefully, I think in the next 35 minutes, I'll be able to share some of the knowledge I have. And then with the remainder of the time, we'll get into a Q&A and go hear some of the knowledge and insights that the rest of those who have joined us have as well, so that we all can be able to learn something today on Tuesday the 30th. So I'll just kick off. And what I've highlighted will basically look at the industries around in Kenya, largely East Africa. And then we want to look at the implementation strategy. This is where we'll be talking about minimal customization and looking at where is actually required for you to customize. Then we'll actually focus on the manufacturing in Business Central, look at some bit of use case scenarios onto the same. So without much ado, I think some of us may have actually interacted with the manufacturing. It's available, comes with a premium license for you to access it. So you'll need a premium license for you to have access to it. I think some of us may have implemented as well. There's also a point to clarify. My throat is not at its optimal as at now. So if anything is not clear, probably when I'm done, you may ask me to repeat and be a bit more clear. And I think in some case you can interrupt me in case it's either the screen or I'm not audible as well. So I think with those rules in order, we can get to it. So these are largely what is displayed on the screen right now. It's what we actually have is the industries classifications. This is actually from Association of Manufacturers in Kenya. And you have agro-processing, automotive, building, mining, constructions, chemical and allied. We have energy, electrical and electronics, food and beverages, leather, metal, plastics, textile, timber. So those are all forms of modifications or value addition. But the value addition of the VAT is just the price of it, but the value addition in terms of changing a form of a particular substance to actually become something else that is consumed or utilized. So you'll have the byproducts, and then you also have your final goods around. And for you to have that, and for us to talk about doing this in Business Central, I want to start from the angle of the implementation strategy. Like, what are the why do I say this is important? Now, most areas or other implementations that we intend to do, and it's very great that now BC is on cloud, there are certain key things that most will usually earlier on with how BC was structured in terms of perpetual purchase, then later on we came to hosting. So you'll have people acquiring and hosting it in their own servers and handling every other thing from there. And that had a lot of impact on how much can be done and how much access was provided also to partners who were able to modify and develop the solution, customize it to meet certain criteria. So that had some porosity in it. It was very porous way of handling a system. And that is how old nav now is being called a legacy system. Why? Because different people would, it's localized now to that particular client. You are able to customize it to whoever fits them. You are able to get into the base code, make modifications. There is no a form of testing, form of quality control testings in terms of the code regression to see if you can handle pressure and such. And that has since morphed by seeing BC move into cloud, move from being nav, and now move onto being Business Central, and it being that the standard solution is not modified anymore, but rather it's extended so that we have these apps and add-ons that we actually introduce to the system and in a way that it's sustainable and can be tested and move. So a lot of those comes across with implementation strategy. So we'll be running with a case. So we'll pick a case and point. Manufacturing sector in Kenya, maybe you can pick battery manufacturing as an example. So we've already aligned with the client. The client is interested in this particular system. What are the key things that are actually handled on onset of this introduction of the system? One of the key things is the implementation strategy. If you've been rolling or deploying nav or being involved one way or another, this is one area that as you continue doing more implementation, you start understanding there are certain things that need to be discussed at the project initiation so that it can govern how the project goes and dictates how it can be smooth, can be done faster, or it's going to be a lot of back and forth, and you can see your risk and analyze. So you need to align on the key concept of strategy. So you need to understand the vision and the business drivers. And you need to understand the vision of that company. If it's a battery manufacturing, what is its vision? What are the business driver of these battery manufacturers? Because these are going to translate into your configurations of Business Central to actually suit their processes. You need to agree on key success metrics. Like once we are done with the implementation of manufacturing in Business Central for this battery, for this, let's say, ABC battery manufacturers, once we are done, how do we know the success metrics? This will affect the commissioning and handover of the system because those are what will be on the sign off. If the key metrics will be, we need to see about 10 production orders. We want to see this and this reports done on this. We want to see this and this number of outputs. Those success metrics will be what will inform you that you've had a successful implementation. These are agreed upon on the onset so that it can inform you and tell you how well you need to be equipped, or rather what kind of a team you need to have in place as you navigate and what kind of team you will be meeting. You need to identify roles and responsibilities. So you need to have a project team that consists of the client and consists of the partner's team. And this team need to be infused in a way that you know the roles. You know the project manager, you know the project sponsor, you have a steering committee. Aside from steering committee, you have the project implementation committee. You need to know when and frequency of their meeting. You need to already have had a standardized report templates for these two key committees in terms of these implementations. And then you need to know your client, and your client needs to know you. What are the roles? Okay, what's the role of, if let's say the head of IT is involved, if the head of business systems is involved, if the production manager is involved, what are their role? Not their role within the company, but their role when it will come to this implementation. What will they be controlling, governing, and actioning? So that you know when we have stalled, we've not gotten the requirements because a particular officer is unavailable. Let's say a production supervisor is not available. Who do you go to actually have the person freed and made available? Remember, this implementation will be done in a company that is already running, and they will not stop their business just because they're implementing a system. No one does. So time has to be created. How is time created? The senior members that you're going to have in this committee, some of them will carry those roles in terms of ensuring availability of their staff. You need to have secured a room where you'll be operating so that you're not walking into the supervisor's office to sit with them at their office, then get interruption so that Something that would have taken 30 minutes ends up taking 2 hours. So you need to have a designated separate room where you can sit. For the meeting rooms, it's secured all through during that period. And you're able to come in, sit, and actually review and actually get to see the progress. Get the decisions that need to be made move without the officer being interrupted. Now, you need to identify and allocate the right resources. Now, this is where two things come to play, because this is going to affect the time you're going to take on this. Just a moment. Just 1 minute to switch. Okay, so just a moment. And you're back. Sorry about that. So, yeah, let's go back to where we were. So we are on identifying and allocating right resources. So you have senior managers, and then you'll have functional heads also involved in this meeting. So you need to know the decision makers. Decision makers need to sit at the steer committee level. Then you need to know the process drivers, not the manager, not the head of, not the whichever unique position titles people get, the process drivers. A process driver can be a production supervisor. A process driver can be an engineering officer, and not head of engineering. Because earlier, when you identify these individuals earlier, you will get the right process from the beginning. You may sit with the head of engineering, he may give you a particular process, and that process was decommissioned about 2 years ago. They are on to something else. Because process drivers are a manufacturing organization use them, they are sectionalized, they are tunneled, they're working on specific tasks. The manager of these process drivers, they work on a global view. So they look at things like how does supply chain affect manufacturing. So because they kind of see all these other things that come into play. So they may not be in touch with the nitty-gritty of actually how does a battery manufacturing line run and work, and which machines are involved at different stages. A process driver will know that. You need to know these people, as they will be your project implementation team. Once you have that, you are set to move, and that will also means you'll be able to know how to tackle customizations that come in. Location, budgets, and funds, you need to settle that. You need to choose a methodology. Most of the never know that BC is on cloud. It's paramount that you need to use SureStep. SureStep is a suite that has been used all along in implementing now, because you already have pre-existing process that run in terms of standard nav, standard business central, and then you will have those gaps that the production team has already told you we scan our inventory, so you will know the standard solution doesn't have this, so that comes on to as a fit gap, so that you are able to exhaust what is available in business central before you go on actually customizing. Usually customization came a lot because
We lost you for a moment, Richard.
you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry about that. So I'll go back again. So in terms of the methodology, you need to use sure step methodology more than ever now that BC is on cloud. And being that BC is on cloud, every partner, or rather any expert, any officer involved in implementing BC need to know the standard now in full. It's no longer an option. So that when you're using a tool like sure step methodology, you are able to already synthesize what is already available. And that will also affect the speed of your deployment so that you can know we have production orders, they already have workflows embedded in them. Do they not have workflows embedded in them? How will that involve customization? Do they actually have production orders to go for approval? So you see that particular request. If you know the base solution and you know that we have workflows embedded already on production orders, there is no customization. So your feed gap will indicate no customization. But if we don't have production orders embedded with the workflow automatically on the standard, you have to extend your workflows so that they can actually have production orders to go for approval using the standard workflow. So that would be a bit of a customization. Now, those key metrics, you have to use sure step methodology more than ever. That should be what is driving the entire project. There are a lot of tools within it and templates that can help you actually run your project much faster and take less time and actually spend less time customizing. You need to also define the deployment and release management in terms of how you're going to deploy the entire solution. What's the approach to deploying the extensions? How will we be doing the updates onto these extensions? What is the cycle of release? So you need to have a already structured way of implementing Business Central that is quality assurance proof, because you need to have it going forward and also coming backwards. That is having it quality assurance proof. And you need to also come up with the change management. These are the key things you're sharing with the team, the project steering committee, and the project management, so that they are able to understand what it is you will be doing and providing to them, and also see the volume of work and how that will impact speed, and have them react properly, early enough, and give you the resources you need. Now, in terms of that already finished that, you need to settle on your implementation methodology. So you need to pick one that works. I highly recommend hybrid. That's what I've used before. Anyone doing waterfall, that's called government way of doing things, no longer works. Don't pick a method, don't pick an implementation method. That's because of it sounds posh. Don't use Scrum and you don't know what components of Scrum involve, and you don't know how Scrum works. You don't know how that is going to impact Business Central, because Business Central is not a software being done from scratch. You may actually end up implementing only the standard thing without customization. At some point, you need to do some customization. These customizations are heavily controlled by the base solution. So in terms of maintaining them and deploying them, will flow differently. That's why hybrid approach has always worked best. So in terms of this discussion in this area, this will clearly tell you the key things you need to customize. Another thing is you'll also be looking at what are the industry policies around this sector, the manufacturing sector. What are the industry policies? IAS, IFRS. Now, this is in accounting world. The only method that is accepted within those countries that comply with IAS and IFRS for manufacturing is the inventory costing method should be standard so that they can able to track and know their variances. For, let's say, motor vehicle, it's weighted average. So you need to know when these costing methods comes to apply, because they will drive your entire solution. And we know manufacturing is driven by inventory, and the inventory setup drives the entire implementation. So from there, understanding those metrics, and then you also need to know maybe the country like in Kenya, we now need to be eTeams ready. So you'll have to build an eTeams connector or an extension, an app that you'll have to do. If you're doing implementation, they'll be doing sales, you'll have to do eTeams integration. So that is a customization that you cannot escape. Then you'll have these customizations that come that they say, we would like our production orders to have an workflow. You first document this functional requirement process as you're discussing with them, as they're giving you on how the production runs. They give you the bill of material, they give you the flow centers have been set. They're now taking you through how a production order typically runs. Then they'll tell you once it's been created, it goes for approval. You need to understand why did they introduce approval. One thing you need to run with all along is if you know the base solution, whenever something is being introduced that you've taken your entire functional requirements process, you've documented. When you look at the best solution, you've generated a document called a fit gap analysis. So this fit gap is telling you all the things you need to customize. You need to go back and sit with the processor. So if we found one thing like a production order needs to go for workflow, now you ask this functional expert or rather process driver for that gave you this requirement on and ask what were you trying to solve when you said when you guys have process production orders are going for approval. You might find there was an operational problem they were resolving that can be resolved by, let's say, the head of the company making a particular decision instead of you customizing. And then you'll find this is actually embedded process in terms of their SOPs, all their compliance in ISO requires them to have that in place. You will need to introduce it. But if they're just to control because an officer was keying in the wrong thing, someone needs to double check, you ask, then who is in charge of creating the works order that they need to be double checked in terms of that role moving to someone else to reduce customization? Because if you do a lot of customizations, we may finish the implementation, but the project may not be successful. The key metrics may not be met. You might find what you did, you took the bureaucratic way of how they're doing the system and automated the bureaucratic way such that the same time it takes to create a production order and finishing scans and release it is the same time or even longer it takes with the system because they're learning a new thing. Key thing, any automation has to always take time less, and the individual users, the data entries, and the people who interact with this document need to spend less time on that particular item because you've introduced controls that actually ensure certain mistakes are no longer made, production order being made. So those are some of now the interactions that will help you govern. So governing customization has a lot to do with the partner's knowledge, what they know, what they understand, and how they chose to implement that particular project, and not just agree to everything and then proceed to create 100 add-ons just for an implementation, a simple implementation of a battery manufacturing company. So that is quite. So on to the next phases, I think we'll just be looking at what's some of the setups that you need to look out for on the Business Central so that we skim through first. I think I have about 15 minutes more. So in the manufacturing, the inventory and warehouse management is very key. In terms of the inventory, this is where you'll have your master SKU that will carry your raw materials, carry your consumables, carry your sub-assemblies, carry your finished goods, carry your byproducts, carry your scrap, and also carry stationery and other things, which will not focus on at the moment. This is where you'll be defining your costing method so that how your inventory valuation will look like, so that you don't end up with a problem whereby you have your inventory valuation reporting a different value, and then your TB reporting a different value, and you're ever in a never-ending audit cycle. In terms of the process of how manufacturing works in Business Central on standard, everything begins from inventory and how it's actually set up. Then once you've set up the SKUs, things come down to the production planning and scheduling. The common world is called MPS and MRP. And the system is actually there. the production, the planning worksheet. That is what is commonly referred to as MPS and MRP. So you can tie those technical names on the manufacturing industry to that particular feature. It does all that. So you'll have your planning. So planning means what orders need to be, the forecast in terms of what we need to produce, what is being sold, what needs to be produced in terms of what is being produced, and then you have what needs to be, what is available on stock, and tells you how much you need to produce, which production orders you need to create, and what time do you need to schedule them. And that will inform if you're scheduling this to be done at this time and this quantity, how much of raw material do you have in stock? If you have less and looks at your lead times, you need to also acquire particular raw materials. And this is the point you need to place the production order so that you're able to generate automatically your planned production orders, and also you're able to generate your purchase orders that need to get your suppliers in time so that the cycle does not stop. You have your production floors. So this is largely your machines and your work centers. So you will find a different set of machines that produce a particular component of battery may be done with more than one machine. So you have like 6 machines that do the same thing. That can be converged to the work center. You may also have another floor plan whereby the floor plan, the flow shop is actually set up in different shops in such that this shop just does an entire battery type K1. This shop does battery K2. So it has 10 machines that one input goes to an output, ends it to another machine, ends to another machine, gives out when the battery produced at the end. So you need to understand how they've done their flow so that you can set up the right machines. And also you need to set up your work centers. And once you have your work centers, there's a combination of machines that does things based on how their flow is currently optimized to work. So you'll spend a lot of time with, I think, the engineering team that handles floor plans. You need to also be involved with the supply chain management, and supply chain management largely because the purchase of these raw materials will affect what is available in stock, when it will be available, and how much can be produced if that item is not available. Financial management, of course, because of your sales orders are going to impact your inventory. So that means in terms of what you need to sell, when it needs to be shipped out, that will affect in terms of how much you'll need to have in inventory and produce, and that can also be used as a source of forecast. You also have your transfer orders can be a source of forecast. If you're replenishing particular locations with transfer orders, then you also need to have the production forecast so you can actually input the quantities that need to be produced. So those play a role there. In terms of invoicing, will play a big role, because if you're using standard cost, at the point of invoicing that particular raw material that was acquired, there will be variance generation in terms of what is standard cost and what is the variance, the difference between the actual purchase price and the standard cost. How do you treat that so that you track it when it's positive, negative, and how do you allocate it further to the goods sold or to such and such on your P&L? You need to also, so that comes the financial management wind of them. Cash planning, so that you know the cash available in terms of raw materials, when you need to pay for them. Those also are just configurations within the system, and you're able to know if this is much the MRP is informing me that I need to acquire, then based on the payment terms there, how much cash do I need to have at this point, at this point, at this point, and so that it can be handled when it be invoiced. You have quality control. You need to know when they plug in, since they'll be testing raw materials when acquired. So they'll be taking some samples. You need to set up the different locations and movements of those particular items that are going to be tested and track them so that they're also expensed if they're no longer going to be used. And even if batteries are picked from the line randomly and tested, you need to have a proper way of how that will be run. And that is usually simple: store requisitions, transfer orders. Then you will have also your AI powered insights with Copilot. So it kind of give you better analysis. The production orders created last week, how long you're taking to close your production orders, how much have you produced, how much have you expensed, what are the variances. So those kind of key reports to the same. So getting into just a bit of finer things on this thing. So in your inventory and warehouse management, there are setups that you'll have to have. The inventory setups, your choice of costing method, and mentioned that. Your locations, have mentioned that, so that you decide whether you have a simple warehouse or an advanced warehouse. Simple warehouse whereby you've enabled locations and bins. Advanced warehouse, sorry, advanced warehouse is whereby you have allocation, you have bins, but you're also controlling the peak. You have a dispatch center, you have a receiving bay, you have different peaks, you have warehouse dispatch. So that means it may be set up in a way that finished goods are taken to a different warehouse and then they can be randomly dispatched with differences. A sale order can sell something in Mombasa and that can be processed here in Kenya and then dispatched by the user down there. So your item master need to be really, really clean and you need to focus on your replenishment and planning time. Replenishment, key things to look at is your lead time, routing and production BOMs you need to set, your flashing method, whether it's forward or backward, at what point do you want your consumptions posted or it's manual. In terms of when handling the production order, then you have a planning tab. This basically helps us now with the MRP part of the system. So that is your reordering policy, dampener period, safety lead time, and such. Then rounding precision. This is one thing people overlook on item guns. There's usually a field there left open called a rounding precision. So if your rounding precision is to the 10th decimal, it's to the nearest 10th, and then your setup on the general ledger setup is to 2 decimal places, you'll be creating variances, which over time will balloon. So you need to know at what component of the decimal places do we consume the raw material? Do you consume it at the 4th decimal or the 5th decimal, so that you set it properly and not generate variances that will lead to your inventory valuation and your general ledger not matching. Standard cost worksheet helps you with rolling up your standard cost, which you'll be doing periodically since you'll be seeing your variance. How much is the actual price vary from the standard cost? So you need to do this periodically. It can be quarterly, it can be annually, depends with the policy, and you need to work with the cost country. Transfer orders, you need to set your transfer routes. The transfer routes will guide you into this. If there are things you're moving from different, you're replenishing in different locations, so you need that to actually have an impact in terms of NPS or MRP, getting to know how much you still have in stock and how much is on its way to that particular location, so that you don't have to create new. And these are all what you're talking about at this point are just standard system. Production planning and scheduling I'd mentioned, so I'll just skim through it a bit. This is how it actually looks. As I told you, it's a planning worksheet. Once you click calculate plan, it gives you options to run an NPS or run an MRP. The best practice is usually you run both at one go, since what it will generate is NPS will be automatically picked as you compute your MRP, and that will mean no one can change. If someone changes an item mid-run, it will inform you. If someone changes an item, critical thing mid-run, because you'll find SKUs are being managed by a different team. If you run MPS alone and then you run MRP alone, you might get different numbers because someone went and changed the reordering quantity of the policy that affected when you're running that. So those are some of the key things you need to look in terms of how are these different functions split to different departments and what synergies there and what routine do they have in place to get things out. You have your focus as well. I mentioned it, that you'll use to input your key focus that we choose to run that particular things. So get to know, and one thing not normally people find when they're doing implementation is your sales orders, transfer orders, purchase orders. These are key items, and the key items within those 3 documents are your order date, receipt date, shipment dates. Data ownership and accurate updates need to be very, very clear. Who is managing sales orders, transfer orders, and purchase orders? That work need to be done religiously every day, so that if a purchase order is not going to arrive in a particular date because the supplier has communicated, it needs to be updated every day if you want your MPS MRP to actually work in a realistic manner. So data ownership you also need to know. If you don't get data ownership resolved, you will end up doing customization to solve operational problem. Why? because when the purchasing team needs to have updated purchase order, they did not. So you're now being told, can you build us something that can automatically have us submit these dates elsewhere? Why do you need to build something extra? But you'll find people pressing, you need to press back so that you know when things need to now compromise in between. Your focus you can load, and the only three tools that planning worksheet use as a source of demand is your sales orders, the demand you uploaded, transfer orders. Single SKU cannot use three, both of the three. So it's either you have SKU X that is on the sales orders, it's not on the demand, and it's on the transfer order, but on a different location. If you have it on a sales order, demand, and transfer order, you're going to get your numbers mixed up. So current-based solution, that is what it caters, or rather take care of. Your floors and machine centers and calendars are key. Calendars are what drive your capacity entries. Your capacity entry will inform, or rather provide you, the transformational costs. How many hours did we run? Because you need to also track labor. There is an officer sitting and running that machine. How much is this person paid in terms of their fractional cost? So this is where cost accountants comes in. The operations team, you'll have the senior team that their salary will be split. How much goes to the factory? How much is on the management? In the flow, you have casual people. How much hours goes into actually that work, so that you get to know a cost. If you have to charge your labor costs, how are you going to charge them standard wise for that particular period that you've set them, so that you know, oh, this machine actually ran 3 hours. So 3 hours, you get to know your computations now. If in 3 hours, the person standing there earns about 16,000 every hour, for every 3 hours, you are going to spend this much in making this particular item. So you need to set up on the same. It's actually in that window you are able to fix a few things there. Your unit of measure, setup time, wait time, scrap percentage as well, if you have any scrap going output. And remember, on the output in terms of handling of scrap, I'll mention it a little later on the end. So we just need to set up your machines well, and your machines will add up to the work center. So work center can have 3, 4, 5 machines based on the items, based on how the floor has been designed. So you need to have those and set them as well. Well, worksheet calendars need to be always generated for the year, so that you know when machines are present, when it goes for maintenance, can be absent. You can track your stoppage time that were done in between, so that you can know your metrics in terms of this production order for this particular shift did this much output because we had a stoppage time of this much because of this code. Maybe there was a part replacement or fuel or addition. From there, you have your floor plans, your production flow. So you have your production design, production orders, and assembly. So production BOMs is the bill of material. You need to have designed your proper bill of materials in terms of what component goes in. So remember, this is also something new, not highly used within Business Central. You can have a BOM that has just the components. So a lot depends with how does the business treat part numbers that are produced, the sub-assembly. Is it of importance to them? Is it not important? So if it's of importance, do they do stock take? Do they track the quantity? If they don't track, then it's not important. That means you can handle that particular production order in a different way. You can have, so that you don't end up having, for you to produce one battery, you have to create 20 production orders. When you find 19 production orders, no one really cares what they output. So you can fuse these BOMs within a BOM. That is what I can call a flat BOM, where you have your bill of material, but inside the bill of material, there are production BOMs, not items, mixed with items, so that they can consume the raw material, so that your MRP is always telling you which raw material to buy directly, and your MPS gives you fine production orders that just deals with the output. If the focus of the company is not on their sub-assembly. So that is something that you need to be made. Your routing is just the order of operation that these items get into work center A, or machine A goes to machine B, goes to machine C, then it's when it's finally done. So that is on routing. You can put your key metric, and that is what drives and says how long does it take to produce this item. It's through the routing. How many routing, what is indicated on the routing to have the output? Is it 5 minutes, 1 second, 2 seconds? That needs to be practical, those happening on the floor. In terms of the production order, you typically run it as a standard. You will have your production journal, which will always click to post out your consumption and post your output. If you're using forward flashing, you'll have to generate your output and post it. That will be indicative of what is posted. Is consumption posted first or the output posted last? If you're backward and forward, so you need to understand them and how you are using them. We also have assembly order. Assembly order is largely now for assembly. So in the battery manufacturing, you need to differentiate manufacturing with assembly. If you're just picking parts and putting together, let's say you're selling a unit of cookware. A unit of cookware that you buy lack of a better word, you buy a sufuria here, you buy a lid there, you buy these different sets or other liters of cooking pot or sufurias, and then you want to put them together and sell them as a unit. That is assembly. But if you're buying a particular sheet of metal, you're cutting it to a particular pieces, and then you're transforming that part to actually create the cooking pot. That is production. So you need to know when to use the two features. The two of them can run in the same factory because assembly order will inform of how the team sells and picks these finished goods and how they sell, or even picks the byproducts and how they sell. But the production order is how they actually make the various outputs and byproducts. So good and important to know. Your supply chain, I mentioned just your purchase orders and the key dates you need to look at. I believe all of us are versed with what a purchase order looks like and a transfer order look like. You need to know if you need procure to pay e-procurement for Business Central, you'll have to customize things like purchase requisition, request for quotation, the different procurement methods. Those are not catered for. The purchasing process starts from the purchase quote. They're comfortable running that file. If they want this e-procurement solution, you'll have to do some customizations. Correct setting of payment times will really give you huge power. Just by good use of payment terms, you're able to know when cash is required, so that not just people generally are putting payment terms on purchase order just because it's a mandatory field. But let's put the ones that so that you know we'll be paying for a prepayment within 7 days of this item being received. Those are the metrics that we have on the payment term. So let's spend more time in it and see what we have there. In financial management, the key things are just cash sheet planning. And that is where MRP comes in. So it tells you what you need to buy, which purchase orders need to be created. So how much you do need to have in place, because you have standard costing tells you how much to prepare in terms of cash. Away from that, you can leverage your incoming documents so that when invoices are being sent to, let's say, the receivables team, that can be actually set up. If you're using Outlook, can be set up with incoming documents, that these documents come in, generate, they're mapped, and actually end up creating a purchase invoice. Then your duty is just to apply it to the respective. You can even do those rules so that it's easy. Your team is not spending time creating documents like someone is seated creating a purchase invoice. So see how to automate it. Most of the team is spending very less time. That's the power of incoming documents, and also save on errors, matching, ensure certain things will be preset like dimensions. Prepayment is very key in terms of your sourcing materials outside of the country. You need to make prepayments before they are shipped or when the order is issued based on your Incoterms. Use it. Choice of currency is also important. So you need to have your currency set up well and managed well. Have it automated as well with the respective. We have Yahoo, we have XE converters. Most of them have APIs. Let's use that feature so that you have your rates loaded automatically and no one is spending time keying in. You have integration of your payment JVs with your bank account, your actual banks, so that when the payment journal is finally generated, No one is going again to the bank portal and starting to type what they've been introducing. So those are now the key things that the system should be driving, so that actually when they finally onboard the system, you can actually see the transformation, and you can see how accountants don't need to spend time whenever they're closing the month, or it's today's payday. We have to make payments to a supplier. They still spend the entire night in the office. So that is how the metrics are measured. Bank reconciliations can also be automated in the same breath as well, so that since you've automated the banks, whenever transactions come in, you can pull your transactions that were in your physical bank to your bank reconciliation, and you're able to match it with your cash book. You're able to transfer bank charges to a journal, post them while you're still doing your bank reconciliation window, and then you're able to automatically match with the proper inconsistency sets and matching, and just proper setup of that bank reconciliation. You set up your SEPA items and your SEPA setup, so that you know the transfers, the matching of the fields on with the bank statement, so that how that should flow. Quality control, I've mentioned this, so this may require, and also you need to know, how do they track? Do they do batch tracking? Do they do serial tracking? So if someone is scanning their output, then that means you need to introduce an extension. When raw material, but do they come in lot? Do they come in pallet? Is there a lot number that needs to be tracked, so that we know which batch went to this particular unit that has been produced? You can set up on the item cards as well. So it's important to know how those works as well. Lastly, is the AI powered insights with Copilot. It will really give you a lot of insights and reduce your time on reporting, so that the dashboard for the production supervisors, production manager, finance manager, the dashboard is insightful. It's thought provoking. It's decision driving. Someone just looks at the dashboard and knows, oh, we have a problem. The production order is actually not being closed. Why? Because a particular machine has stopped since last night. So, and we have this and we need to meet that. So, someone is able to get in the office, just log in by looking at the dashboard. They get out to go get what needs to be done fixed. So, gives pointers on that, and that gives a lot of change and makes our reporting robust. So, some questions from the many WhatsApp shared. Any question? Any question? Yes, Fred.
Fred is clapping. Thank you, Richard. Maybe just for a quick one, for someone who has never used the manufacturing module, how can they navigate understanding it? Or
Good. So, um, there is a lot of tools in a lot of things provided by Microsoft. Start from there. In the term, good. So you can get you can get the BC on trial online. Aside from that, you can download and install Acronis with it that comes off a bit of the shelves. There is also some practical module in the Learning Center, Microsoft Learning Center. You just need to have an email account. Set up your Learning Center, and you're able to explore and read on manufacturing. And as you'll be reading, you'll have a configured database that is called Kronos. You're able to see how they're making coffee, how they're making a bicycle. It's usually a bicycle that's there. So you can see the components, they've already been tested for you. So you can test them out, understand, use it as it is, as you read through the Learning Center. I think Sangi will post the Learning Center. Microsoft, you can even just Google it and find the Learning Center. Let me just actually try that. I think I should have it bookmarked for something. Yes, so something like this. Well, this is actually on code. So I can say,
the currently shared screen is the slides.
sorry. Let me just change that. Just share my entire screen. So here, sorry, this is Ignite. Different one.
Anyway, that's fine. Maybe we'll share that link.
Yes.
No problem.
We'll
Then
share a
the
link into that so that you're able to read. Yes, Microsoft Learn is what I was looking for. This link, yeah, can load it there. Create an email, and you are able to read, have a Cronus, and use it to understand the base. Right. Next question.
anyone with a question, guys? We need to wrap up.
Fred had a question, I think. His hand was
Oh,
raised.
oh, he was clapping, I think, if I'm not wrong.
All right. Okay. Anyone with a question? Anyone who has not interacted with manufacturing at all? I would just like to know how many we have. Never implemented manufacturing, you've never touched it. Okay. Anyone with an active manufacturing implementation ongoing right now? For those who have an active manufacturing ongoing, which sector is this, and what are some of the unique things you're finding there? I've seen we have Mercy and Valerie. Valerie, Mercy has dropped. Do you have any implementation going on in the manufacturing space?
I think Nehemiah is saying that he has one.
All right. So what are the unique things you're finding? Nehemiah, what have you found so far? The unique things in that particular sector? You can just be vague. I know there is a lot of NDAs when it comes to implementing system.
Hi.
Hi.
No, I was just answering the first question on people who have never implemented the manufacturing module.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. So some of the insights that I've shared in terms of, I tailored this report because of some of the things I've met in my implementation journey within Africa and a bit in Europe and Asia. I've done about 22 companies, manufacturing companies now, and you meet different things and how people do things in the different spaces, and some of the policies are required to comply with. Some people have registered on ISO. So sharing is just the base foundation of some of the things you need to look into. I think I'll be heavily working on a campaign to get most manufacturing companies to actually embrace and use Business Central. It's very cost friendly. It's on cloud. It's available all the time with a guaranteed 2 hours downtime in a year. And you have access. You have access to so many tools that can really bring a lot of impact as opposed to the legacy systems that are currently being used by most manufacturing companies. So I think it's a good campaign to kick off. So I think that's it on my end. Francis, will return the meeting back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Richard, for that insights on manufacturing. Valerie, you still have your hand raised. I don't know if you have a question or it's just part of the hand being raised, but it's fine. Okay, so we will wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for joining this series of online meetups. The next one will be the end of next month. But if you feel we need more, guys, just reach out to one of the leaders. And if you need another follow-up for the same manufacturing, feel free to reach out to Richard. Richard is in the group. Richard, you can share your LinkedIn or and also maybe your contact on the chat, so that anyone with a direct question or a specific query can be able to reach out. Otherwise, I wish you a great evening.